I did see the government and especially the leadership taking a real beating from that energy. I do think by the time we get to the end of 2026, it will look very different from how it started. It's almost like everything flips. I don't want to scare people, but there's going to be a lot of changes. And ultimately, hopefully, these changes will be good. So, hi, everybody. I'm Christina from Big Beautiful Sky. I am a trauma trained hypnotherapist, an astrologer, and all things health and wellness. So, my work, I help people navigate trauma, I help people clear limiting beliefs. I help people understand who they are on a deeper level. I help people navigate energy and changes. I help people clear blocks so they can create more success in their life and in their business. I am a psychic medium. I've been one since birth. I don't do that as a practice, but I do let my intuition inform all that I do. Right. So like I said, the transformation is it's not just external, it's internal because people are going to realize that they have to take responsibility. It's up to them. So you're going to see more protests. You're going to see people standing up. I think people are going to become quite rebellious in that it's not going to be just business as usual. People are going to start saying, no, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete that social media app. I'm not going to invest in that anymore. I'm not going to buy that anymore. I actually want my life to look differently than it has been over the last decade. And so as we shift and take more responsibility, that's going to, of course, ripple out into the collective. I also think, too, people are going to start to really understand how I'm hoping at least, understand how their thought processes affect how they behave, right? So the wonderful thing about technology is the faster technology advances, the more it allows us to, it's like a reflection of who we are. So I don't see technology as separate from us. I see it as us trying to understand how we operate. So it's almost like the technology is looking back at us and showing us, people don't like AI. Well, AI is our data. It's us. It's showing us who we are. It's showing us how we operate. And so when I do my remote viewing sessions and I do these investigations to figure out what happens when we die, what is the reincarnation process on Earth like? What I see is that it's very technologically advanced in the way it's set up. I mean, I do see that we are living in a simulation of sorts, that our reincarnation process it's almost automated, like it is AI. There's very technologically advanced things happening around us. So it's almost like the technology we're creating is us unconsciously building what we are. Not saying we're robots, we are biological robots in a way, but what I'm hoping people understand is that we're programmed to think a certain way and we're programmed to behave in a certain way by our families, by religion, by society, that our identities really are just a bunch of programs. And we can decide, oh, you know what? I don't want to run those programs anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. I actually want my life to look this way. Okay, if you want to make changes in your life, then you have to change the programs you're running. You have to reprogram yourself. And so as we sort of wake up to this programming and this propaganda we've been subjected to for, ever, it's going to start to have these huge shifts are going to happen in response. So the old ways of doing, the old ways of being, the old ways of people telling us how to think, it's gone. Everything's breaking down. It's almost like there's no rules anymore. So we've got to make our own. Okay, what are the new rules? So I'm hoping that with this new blank slate, it's almost like we're getting a blank slate to create something completely new. So we really need to think about what new do we want to create? How is it going to benefit us? How is it going to benefit everyone? And, for everyone to get involved, for everyone to be a stakeholder, not just whoever's at the top. Yes. And so what I was shown was, it was like, if you can build a basement where you can just retreat, these thick cement walls, because we have so much radiation from the sun, but also the EMFs and all these radio waves and all this technology sort of blasting us with things all the time. So it was almost like if you can go down into the earth, it's like a protective womb. You don't get hit with all these different things. It filters everything out. So it's a way to retreat into a quiet, safe, calm space. Where I live in Australia is is not it's not the desert, it's not the outback, but if you do travel into the outback, there's a town where people have dug into the earth and they've built hotels underground in these caves because it's the desert, it's so hot out there. And it's so lovely when you're on the surface, you're just being blasted with the sun, with this heat, to go into these hotels that are in the ground. It just feels so quiet and safe and relaxing. You're instantly calm. So if you can, go hang out in your basement. Right. So when I sat down to do my remote viewing session, I believe it was the beginning of December 2025. And what I could see was this year, 2026, would be very volatile economically. I was trying to chart the way the economy would. So I sat down and I asked specifically about the US economy. And I was shown that there would be a dip between March and May. Something was going to happen to trigger some sort of sell-off in the markets, perhaps, or a drop in the markets. So from March to May, things would go down, and it would look like, oh, everything's crashed. People would sell their stocks, but then it would start to rebound. Something was going to happen, and it's looking more and more like the president will either drop rates or do something to manipulate the economy, and all of a sudden stocks go back up. So from about May, June, through the summer, the stocks go back up. There's maybe highs again. Everyone's excited. They thought that the crash happened between March and May, and now stocks are back up and everything's good. But I didn't see that. I saw that as we get towards the end of the year, things become even more volatile and stocks start to really fall again. That this AI bubble that's been kind of holding everything up really starts to deflate. The technology, they're all trying to create AGI. And I just don't think the current technology is going to deliver all that it's promising. And so I do think there will be a correction in those investments and the value of those stocks from March to May, but also towards the end of the year. I think as things become more and more volatile, as people become more and more upset, as there's more and more pushback to this authoritarian control that keeps trying to take over, the markets are going to react to that. And I think going into 2027, there will be a much longer downturn. But I don't want to scare people. I think that we're going to be okay. I don't see this epic catastrophic depression. I do see that it is a deep recession. And, for some, it could be a really great opportunity to invest because the market's been at all-time highs. It's been very expensive. So the best thing that could happen is for it to go down so we can invest and buy more. But also, I do think this is going to trigger a new monetary system. I do think there's a new monetary system coming in. I didn't really investigate when or how that would come about. I do think that's probably more towards the end of 2026, maybe 2027, 2028, but it's definitely happening soon. When I remote viewed 2026, I saw very clearly a lot was going to happen. I remember what came up first was I kept seeing these severe solar storms. And when I published my predictions at the beginning of the month in January, I think it was a week later, we had a massive solar storm, one of the strongest solar storms in 20 years. And so in these solar storms, there's a lot of energy that's hitting the earth. And what I could see is that the shield that protects the earth, I'm not a scientist, but we have ionospheres, I'm not sure, but it protects the earth from these solar storms. It looked like it was shifting or contracting or weakening. These solar storms were really big. And so these solar storms, from what I could see, cause a lot of things. There's ripple effects. So there's earthquakes, it could be tsunamis, um, volcanic eruptions, extreme weather. And it can be really hard for people energetically. So it can disrupt your sleep. It can cause anxiety. It can cause things like strokes and heart attacks. So a lot of people think when the sun has these big storms, it's like, it's an enlightenment moment, consciousness awakening. I didn't really see that. I saw that it was actually quite difficult on our physical bodies. And for us to be, mindful of that, to take care of our bodies, to make sure we're grounding, drink lots of water, stay calm. If you feel anxious or like something's not right, you can't sleep, check and see if there's a solar storm. And most just the best thing you can do when we're having these geomagnetic storms, solar storms, is to go to the beach, do lots of swimming in natural water, lots of grounding. So these solar storms, not only in 2026, I think it seemed like it was just 2026 that they were pretty severe. It's causing a lot of issues to our weather, but also to our mental health. So it's going to trigger a lot of stuff. People are going to act erratic. So make sure you stay calm and think before you act. When I was remote viewing and I was shown these solar storms, I was shown that sometimes living on the surface of the earth isn't always ideal for our bodies. They've done so many studies that show that grounding, that putting your feet on the earth, that connecting to the earth is so beneficial for you. I don't really know why. It does something, it regulates your body. And so I wasn't surprised when I saw this. It was almost as a response to these storms. I was shown that it would be ideal this year, if you could, to spend more time underground, sort of sheltering from this radiation as it's hitting the earth, especially if you're really sensitive. Because, like I said, these storms create this intense anxiety, this insomnia. It can the intensity of the solar radiation can trigger strokes, heart attacks. So being under the ground, I don't know if it's the ions, it really is quite beneficial in this scenario. Not all the time. I think too, astrologically, we're moving into a new air and fire era. So the outer planets have been in earth and water. They're moving into air and fire. So we're going to need to really ground. So when I say go to the ocean, put your feet on the ground, when these solar storms come in and they're really intense, connect to the earth, connect to the water. You've kind of got to move in the opposite direction to counteract the energy coming in. In my remote viewing session of 2026, I did not see a virus, but I'm an astrologer. And we have a Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries in February of 2026. That could be a trigger for a virus. It's similar, if you remember in 2020 when COVID happened, it was the Saturn Pluto conjunction. A Saturn Neptune conjunction is similar in a way, especially because Neptune is the boundaryless sort of planet of contagions, right? So we could see, I'm not surprised. I did see this virus in the news and I'm not surprised it popped up. It doesn't have great statistics. It's a bit scary. I don't really like it. Hopefully it's not as transmissible as COVID was. COVID just traveled easily everywhere, all over the place. We'll have to see what this virus does in terms of how far it will go. I can't remember, but COVID had a really long, I don't know if incubation is the word, but it would just sort of lie dormant for a long time, which allowed it to be sort of carried across the globe rapidly. We'll see what this virus is like, but yes, there could be an outbreak, especially February, March. I'm not personally worried about it, but I wasn't worried about COVID either. The fear and the paranoia of COVID, I just didn't buy into that. I didn't fuel that paranoia at all. I just sat back and I watched and I remained an observer to it and I let it play out, and responded to it when I needed to. But I highly recommend people stay out of fear, stay calm, stay regulated, stay grounded. If you need help, come see me. We'll do a belief hacking session. We'll calm you down. But yes, that virus is not, because of the conjunction, I am a little worried, but I didn't see it in my remote viewing. So hopefully it doesn't spread too far. Earth is not a utopia. Earth is a challenging place that's pushing us all the time to evolve. And the more we can just lean into that and say, well, here are the challenges. How can I creatively overcome them? I think turning it into almost a game is the best approach. I've done remote viewing sessions and I really tried to tap into Earth. And when I've tapped into Earth as a spirit, Earth is very much on her own journey. Earth is very much just going about her own process, doing her own things. I don't really see Earth that invested in us. We haven't really been here that long. We're not a part of the Earth forever. It's almost like we're just sort of visiting her. So when I tapped into her energy, to me, it felt like she was saying, you should appreciate what I have to offer. The beauty, the abundance, we 100% rely on her to survive. And so it was more this, why don't you just appreciate me? Why don't you appreciate all I do for you? Um, you know, the way that she viewed us it was almost like these silly, silly children, doing these silly, silly things that made no sense. When you really zoom out and look at humanity, what we're doing and how we're behaving and how we're treating the earth and nature, we are actually just creating our own extinction. The earth will go on. The earth will be here. We won't if we don't change the way we behave and the way we respect life. The issue is we don't value life. We don't understand life. We don't understand who we are. Look at the way we treat women and children. Look at the way we treat the earth. That needs to change. We're hurting ourselves. So I saw the earth sort of shrugging, her shoulders and going, the choice is yours. If you want to become extinct, fine, I will go on without you. I think so my final message to everyone is that your life is precious. Your life is important. You are so creative. And the more you tap into that, and the more you experiment, and the more you explore, and the more you learn, and the more you grow, and the more you evolve, the better off you're going to be. Take care of yourself, take care of your families, take care of your neighbors. We're all in this together. And life is short, and to enjoy it as much as possible and to not get bogged down in the negativity, in the bad news. Really try to focus on the amazing ability that you have to create an interesting, dynamic, fun life. People can find me at bigbeautifulsky.com. You can book sessions. I would absolutely love to meet you.